joint meeting of the Dale City City Council and the Dale City Planning Commission for February 9th, 2023. Melissa, there you are. Will you call the roll, please?
Sure. Commissioners Terry Parker.
Here.
Richard Hutchinson.
Here.
Michael Streetman.
Here.
Michelle Caruso.
Here.
Wendell Clark.
Here.
Sam Turk.
Here.
Greg Childers.
Present.
Josh Schultz.
Here.
And for the council members, Councilman Kyle Gandy.
Here.
Councilwoman Jackie Mooney.
Here.
Councilwoman Pam Finch.
Here.
Councilman Michael Dean.
Here.
And Mayor Floyd Eason.
Mayor is here. Would you rise, please, for the invocation? I have Pastor Sam Turk to lead us in the invocation.
Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you so much for your grace and your love to us. And Lord, we pray that you will give us wisdom and discernment as we are making considerations and decisions, Lord, for this city. I pray, Lord, that you'll bless the city and bless the leadership in this city as well. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pastor Sam's church is celebrating its 69th anniversary this Sunday. Is that right?
Well, for our church.
Or your
Throw that out, Sam.
Mr. Childers, would you lead us in the salute, please?
Absolutely. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. We're going to skip right to item number 4, discussion on a moratorium on specific special use permits. Discussion, consideration, possible action to approve or deny holding a discussion regarding a moratorium on specific special use permits for the remainder of the comprehensive planning process. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve as written. I'll second.
Stereo.
It is stereo. We have motion 2. Who's doing the second?
Parliamentary question, please. Since this is a joint meeting, can any member?
That's just what I was mulling over in my head.
Okay.
We've never done this before.
It's a council meeting.
It's a council and commission meeting.
Right. So
Let's ask our attorney about that.
Yeah.
Hi, put you on the spot, Beverly. Can we entertain motions and from the planning commission too?
I believe since it's a joint meeting, I think that would be appropriate as research. I've not fully researched it, but that would be my opinion as of right now. So
Based on a recent survey, we accept your second.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? JD, where's JD?
I'm right here, sir.
JD, would you like to explain exactly what we're doing here so that everybody is on the same page?
Prior to making a vote, open a discussion.
Yeah, we gotta vote.
Yeah, well, I guess we better. All right, I'm sorry, you're right. Motion and a second, any discussion? Take the vote. Councilman Finch, I'm sitting here wondering if I need to call everybody. Councilman Finch, Michelle, Planning Commission. This is gonna be really clumsy.
It'll be a challenge for
It
you.
will be a challenge. Somebody's gonna have to keep voting. Councilman Gandy. Aye. Councilman Mooney.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Commissioner Kluge.
Aye.
Commissioner Turk.
Aye.
Commissioner Childers. Commissioner Schultz.
Aye.
I can't read your name tag. Oh, Terry Parker, sure. Terry.
Aye.
Commissioner Hutchinson.
Aye.
Commissioner Streetman.
Aye.
And you've already
ayed.
ayed. I think it passed unanimously. We are now in discussion mode. This is a public discussion, and Mr. Monk, what have you got for us?
So, if you all recall, whenever, or even before we started the comprehensive planning process, the Planning Commission and the City Council both voted to place a moratorium on special exceptions to our zoning processes for now, while we tried to figure out the comprehensive planning process and to get a system put in place. That way we wouldn't be making special exceptions until we knew exactly what we wanted to see the city moving forward. We are having the same issue now with specific or special use permits. The words are being used interchangeably, but the specific use permit, special use permit in this case. Specifically in the focus areas you're about to see with our comprehensive planning team. And the questions that I have are, are you all interested in putting a moratorium on this until the planning process is complete? If we're in the process of planning what to do with these 3 focus areas, and we've already been inundated with specific use permits, everything from thrift stores to car washes to adult novelty shops in these areas as of right now. So if you'd like me to continue moving those forward, I can, which would go to the planning commission and to the city council for a vote. And the question would be, because right now the comment would be, is it within the spirit and intent of our comprehensive plan? Since we do not have an active one as of yet, that's not an option. It has to continually go before the process. We may continue the process. The staff is willing to do all of that, but we thought we'd bring it to your attention and perform a moratorium, just like we did with the special exceptions. Place the same thing on this one. It would go till about January, maybe February of 2024, whenever this comprehensive plan would be adopted by all of you formally, and then move forward, and then all the moratoriums would disappear at the same time. So it's just an option on the table. Feel free to discuss it openly. The city planner and I are happy to answer any questions.
So it might be a little cleaner if we're going to adopt this moratorium, to put a definite time stamp on the end of it, perhaps 1 year from the date that it passes council. Now, you're confident that we can always extend it at a later date or end it early with the vote of the council also. So really, it can be fluid. I like the idea of the moratorium because it gives us more ability to plan what we want to do with a certain area without having the speed bumps of adult novelty or thrift stores or whatever in the way. And those kind of things will impede progress when we actually start soliciting businesses to come to the city. Some companies may not want to be next door to a thrift store or a car wash or whatever. So I see it as a plus, but I would like to just put a definite time to end it, which could be modified at a later date.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
My only question would be, how often do we, obviously I haven't been on here very long, how often do we issue special permits, and how would that affect possible new businesses that we would maybe either eventually or want now in those that have special use permits? My easiest thing is the axe throwing place with what they do. How would that affect some of those businesses that we would want to come into Del City, that if we say we're not going to hear your special permit until February or March of 2024, they're just going to go somewhere else? How often do we do that, and how would that affect growth that we could be having this year?
If you don't mind, I'll jump in on that.
Mhm.
There are certain areas where there is a right to come in, that it doesn't have to be granted a variance for the business to come in. That's a fairly lengthy list. And all those, that's not stopping every new business from coming in. That's only stopping like a thrift store from coming into a downtown area, or it's going to stop a car wash from coming into an area that we are projecting to produce sales tax. So the list is quite lengthy, and we'd be happy to get you a copy of that. It's not going to stop a lot of things. What it does stop is the things that aren't typically in an area where sales tax is generated. That's the kind of things that it would stop. Del City has such limited space to generate sales tax, and what we're trying to do is protect that prime locations from getting things that don't generate sales tax. We have to maximize the use of each piece of property.
That was just the only question.
To add to that, so the average specific use permit that you all would receive is maybe 2 to 3 a year, max, city planner?
Okay, so yeah, usually we have about 3 a year. We had 3 special use permits issued in 2020. We had 3 special use permits issued in 2021. In 2022, we had 9. In 2023, we already have 2 that are on agendas for just this month. And I mean, we're in what, week 2 of February, so it's, projecting from these numbers, I would think that we're gonna have another busy year of special use permits.
Do you happen to know the last one that we did, just for example?
The last
The
special
last one that
use,
passed? I mean, if
It's
you don't, that's fine, just as an example, so.
In my recollection, it was a pawn shop that came in, and on the application, they were supposed to do gun sales and book sales. And we specified we did not want used merchandise. That's a city ordinance.
we did
They-
one,
They've already violated that.
sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
We've done one since then. We did do the alcohol license, the ABLE license, so
Oh,
that
the axe
for the axe throwing place to be able to sell alcohol in their establishment there. We did do that.
So these two examples be specific, or is it just a special?
So the terminology is specific use permit, but because we've used the term special for so long, in our case, they're interchangeable. Whenever we do our ordinance changes, we will request those changes in ordinance to say specific, because right now it's a use permitted by right or a specific use granted by permit is the technical terminology. But we always just use special and it rolled off the tongue easy.
This is crazy. Is there a way to make an exception to hearing maybe special or specific use permits for already existing businesses? So the axe throwing place is an example of that. They were already here, they already were established, and then they wanted to then sell alcohol. Is there a way to do that, or would that be too messy as well? Is it one or the other the
I
easiest way?
think once you begin violating the moratorium, you're opening it for lawsuits and other problems.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Tim.
Actually, part of the moratorium for administrative pause, as some cities say, there is an appeal process built in, we have to do that as part of the due process rights. So they would still have the right to come and have it be considered.
Plead your case.
Yes, so
Okay.
Awesome.
that is required, that's part of the.
Right.
Then I see no issue there.
And our biggest goal was to have this discussion because before we send it through for the planner, myself, and the attorney to work up the process, we don't want to work up a process that doesn't have specific or starting buy-in point. Because if we want to keep them as it is, that's fine. But as the developer, having the calls that I've had, many people are coming in, and when we told them it's not a use permitted by right, they said, well, okay, what's your special use process? And we've given that to multiple people just in the past 2 weeks.
So I asked the question, didn't we already have this in there, so can you explain the difference between special exception and special use?
You want to hand it?
So the special exceptions are for the use classifications. They're for like special, say an industrial business, for an example, wants to go right in the middle of an arterial commercial because they want to do cabinet manufacturing. That's not completely unheard of, but it requires a special exception.
So a special exception would be when you totally go into a different zoning area. An industrial goes into residential, a residential goes into commercial, a commercial goes into industrial. That would be a special exception, that this has nothing to do with the use permitted by right, use permitted by permit. This is a totally special exception we're doing for you, and that's what's currently caused.
Follow the property, not the business.
Correct. The special exceptions actually changes the zoning on the property itself, and it stays with it for the life of the property.
Unless
So
it's
it would have
changed
to be
again.
changed back.
Right.
Yeah, unless it gets changed back. Correct.
So this would be, in addition to no special exceptions, now no specific use. Unless it's a use permitted by right, we don't allow it until this planning process is over and all of you had a chance to look over the new zoning options that we have, the new goals that we have, and whether or not it will fit into that. Yes, sir?
For those not familiar with the Board of Adjustment, ours is the only board within the city that actually is tasked with considering the sorts of things like granting these unusual exceptions that are outside the scope of ordinances, or they're asking for an exception to it. And we had recently come forward to ask the city council, because we're not elected officials, we're very sensitive to what we do could establish precedent for years, decades. So we asked for guidance from the city on one particular issue. How will this affect the Board of Adjustment and how we should proceed? Because right now there's one ordinance that we are considering on a case-by-case basis. And to take a quick segue away, the other issue I would appreciate everyone's consideration is, having served on the Board of Adjustment for a while now, I've seen just how terribly hard our city employees work and how customer responsive they are. And we've got some changes coming up, and there's a lot that's going to be happening. And the more we can do to keep them from being distracted from things like, well, from all sorts of things, the better off I think they're going to be. I've watched Kelly and JD and their staff work terribly hard, late hours, trying to do what's best for the city. And as it is, no matter what we do, they're going to have to be considering things like someone whose husband died and wants to bury them in the backyard. That takes a lot of research, or someone who doesn't like it anyway. So whatever we can do, speaking as the vice chair of the Board of Adjustment, I'd say the more we can do to keep down the burden on our city staff, the better off we as a city are going to be, and will grow better. That said, I'd appreciate any guidance you have for the Board of Adjustment on how you would like us to proceed. Like, will this particular thing that you're asking to do now, should we then stop considering garage conversions, or should we proceed with the advice as given to us by City Council?
So this would have no effect on the Board of Adjustment. Your powers are to provide variances or exceptions to our building codes. This would go affect specifically our zoning ordinances, which is under the advisement of the City Council and the Planning Commission. So Board of Adjustment is variant specific to building codes, building ordinances specifically, 70% masonry, only 32 feet tall, those types of things are what's within your particular purview. This would be within their purview of allowing, or not allowing in this case, zoning for a period of time, changing of zoning for a period of time.
Oh, I agree. We have faced issues that are outside of building code, like someone wanting to grow marijuana in a store, those kind of things. So that's why I'm bringing that up, to make sure we stay well within our lane and we're doing the best we can to support the city.
Right.
Just saying, that wasn't my flower shop.
Are you sure? Is that your side hustle thing? Thank you.
Any other questions for myself or the city planner?
Well, I think trying to answer that question is he knows what the elected officials, appointed officials feel about the city, but you're still supposed to have your independent ability to judge appropriately. So, we can't direct you to do anything. You're supposed to be independent.
You're still in the hot seat.
Yeah.
And it's a pleasure to serve.
Thank you.
All right, any further discussion on this moratorium? This will be something that the council will vote on at a later date. But if anybody has any input, we'd certainly be welcoming it. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to close the public discussion.
Make a motion, we close the discussion.
Second.
Is that window? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Take the vote. Colin Gandy.
Aye.
Wendell Kluge.
Aye.
Jackie Mooney.
Aye.
Pam Finch.
Aye.
Michael Dean.
Aye.
And then around the room, Sam Turk.
Aye.
Greg Childers.
Aye.
Mr. Schultz, Josh Schultz.
Aye.
Terry Parker. Okay. Richard.
Aye.
Michael. Aye. Michelle. It's unanimous. The public portion is now closed. We will move on to item number 5, discussion only. 20-year comprehensive plan. Discussion, consideration, possible action to approve holding a discussion relative to the 20-year comprehensive plan between the City Council and the Dale City Planning Commission and representatives from Half Associates Incorporated concerning the 3 major focus areas identified on the November 3rd, 2022 joint special meeting. Reno Avenue, Eagle Lake area, Southeast 15th Street, Tinker Diagonal to Sooner Road, and Southeast 29th Street, Sunny Lane to Bryant. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to hold a discussion relative to the 2-year comprehensive plan.
Second.
Josh. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Take the vote. Councilman Finch.
Aye.
Commissioner Schultz.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Mooney.
Aye.
Councilman Gandy. Commissioner Caruso.
Aye.
Commissioner Streetman.
Aye.
Commissioner Hutchinson. I'm getting there. Commissioner Parker.
Aye.
Commissioner Childers, thank you. Commissioner Turk.
Aye.
And Mr. Kluge. Aye. This is much easier when there's only 5 people. The mayor votes aye. We are now in public discussion. Let's see, this is requested by Kelly Abel. Kelly, do you have something for us?
So I'm just gonna introduce you guys to the HAF team. This is Nathalie, she is the project manager for HAF, and Shane. Shane is not positive what your title is, you may need to share that with them.
Sure.
But we held focus groups in here yesterday, on and off all day. We had a really good turnout, we had really great discussions. And we had a lot of fun, because we got to be creative and draw and color, and it was great. But they're gonna present their findings, or the findings that we came up with yesterday in focus groups, you guys.
And you guys will also get to have some fun and color. So I'm gonna kick the process off a little bit, and then I'll hand it over to Shane and kind of step out of the way and take notes. But you guys all met me and Shane back in November when we did the first meeting. At that meeting, as Kelly said, or as Mayor Eason said, we identified the 3 special focus areas. So now we have come back. We've done some research on those focus areas, Shane has, and we held stakeholder meetings yesterday with some identified individuals for each area, kind of brainstorming vision ideas. What can these areas be? How can they grow over the next 10, 20 years for the horizon of this plan? So we're about 1/3 of the way through the comprehensive planning process. This kind of wraps up our, as I said previously, sponge mode data collection. After tonight, we'll have all the data that we need. Shane is going to give a presentation and lead you all through a discussion on the 3 special focus areas. And then we have a small mapping exercise for all of you guys to take part, where you get to color and have fun. So right now you have some maps on your table with some markers and a piece of paper that says mapping exercise. Go ahead and ignore that for now. After Shane's presentation, I'll come back and I'll explain what we're doing with those. And then I'll hand it off to Shane. And
thank you. Cool. Well, thanks for having us here. Good evening, everybody. And Mayor Eason, thanks for getting everybody in an agreeable mood. Aye. So this should be a really easy presentation. We did have a lot of fun yesterday. We're excited to hear, and sorry, Josh, I'm going to kind of be blocking your view a little bit, but these were just the 3 focus areas that y'all just read off on Reno 29th and 15th. This is what it looked like. We were just in this room. A lot of you got to be here. Brian was here, and Michelle was here. Larry and John. Josh was here. Wendell was here. So a lot of people cycled in. So we had a different group for each of the 3 focus areas. Some folks helped us by sketching out their ideas on these maps that we had available, but we just had really good discussions about what the different opportunities and challenges of each of these areas were, and how we could leverage those opportunities for the future, what maybe we could all envision. We also talked a lot about what could we do kind of quickly, and what maybe is more of a big idea to think about, since this is a 20-year time horizon on this plan. What I'm going to do is read off to you kind of like the 2 to 3 big pitches from each of these focus areas that our groups developed, and just kind of ask this audience for kind of thumbs up. Are we heading in the right direction? We'll pause in between each one just to kind of have a conversation, things that you really liked, extra notes that you want to add to those areas, or maybe things that maybe we should be cautious about, or maybe do some more checking about before we actually develop them further into the plan. So does that sound okay? Okay. So Reno is our first focus area. These were the three big ideas. So number one was kind of Eagle Lake as a destination. So the group talked a lot about Eagle Lake having a lot of potential as sort of a family-friendly recreational area. It's a beautiful view of downtown. Maybe that we could still do more to invest in that space. So I'll share some of those ideas. Second big idea is that Reno is a corridor a lot of people experience Del City on. It passes all the way through the focus area we were looking at, went from border to border. So we were thinking about the gateways, we were thinking about the experience people have as they're passing through, and just how we can make that a more attractive and connective place. It also has the potential to connect Eagle Lake with Ray Trent Park, which is a huge possibility for Del City. Third thing is just how the neighborhoods and commercial districts could kind of grow and evolve along the corridor as well. We'll start at Eagle Lake. These were some of the ideas that came out. This is just a bird's eye view of Eagle Lake, but first thing we talked about was the connectivity to the regional trail system that has been growing in Oklahoma City. Once you can, and there's already funded trail and parking lot improvements for Eagle Lake that are coming soon. So pretty soon you'll be able to plug into the whole Oklahoma City regional trail system and bike all the way up to Lake Hefner if you want to on this system. So this is another gateway. It's not just the Reno corridor that's a gateway, but also trails are a gateway to and from the community. We talked about how if you're driving along Reno, you might blink and miss the Eagle Lake entry. So we talked about creating sort of a landmark entry point that people could really see. We talked about those improved parking lots that are coming, but maybe also adding a food truck component, something that would be easy to program a quick event, bring a food truck in. Some fun ideas were a beach, sandy beach at Eagle Lake. Has anybody been to Scissortail Park and climbed the hill and got a cool view of downtown? That was a really cool idea that came out because this park has a great view of downtown fireworks. So maybe we could incorporate a small hill. This would be a great place for, it's not a huge park where you could put a soccer field, but a great place for yard games or pickleball or sort of smaller scale activities. We think an Instagrammable moment might work. We talked a little bit about some additional landscaping along the north edge to kind of screen the views of the industrial areas. So you can think of this presentation kind of as the vision board for the group for yesterday, so kind of what some of these ideas could look like. But when we talk about an entry point from Reno that's a little bit more visible, maybe it's a statement piece that really says how proud you are of Eagle Lake. Like this is in Ardmore, a new park called Depot Park that they've constructed with a pretty noticeable exclamation point. The Depot District in Muskogee, more of a gateway monument. Instagrammable spots in the park, maybe that's accomplished through art that's kind of specific to Eagle Lake. These two examples kind of came up yesterday. The Lake Hefner Lighthouse, you kind of recognize that right away as that's where that is. Or this beautiful sculpture in Scissortail Park that's made of trash. That's pretty cool, but you can see the downtown view. Nathalie and I were talking a little bit more today, and we thought the eagle is so cool, but you can't experience it when you're out on the ground in the park. It's kind of hard to see unless you're looking at a map. So wouldn't it be cool if we showed people when they came in this cool map of what that Eagle Peninsula really looks like? An example of the hill. There's some things that could be not too expensive to install that could help people want to spend a little bit more time here, like a hammock park, idea of the food truck infrastructure. You already have the restrooms, which is a key component. Some things can be really simple, like just putting some horseshoes or bocce ball or an activity library. I loved this place I found in Hera, Oklahoma, really hometown kind of feel. But I think something like that could feel good at Eagle Lake. Okay. Second component of this is Reno. So one thing about Reno is kind of how it can connect from Eagle Lake to Ray Trent Park. I just pulled this example from the village. The village recently redid Britton Road through their community. It's a very important street in the village. Traffic counts are pretty similar to this part of Reno. They went with a one lane in each direction configuration with a turn lane to kind of keep the left turn folks out of your way, so it helps traffic stay moving even though they have less lanes. And that gave them enough room to do a wider multi-purpose trail on the side of the street. So maybe this is something that could be explored a little bit more by the group, of how we could have a bike trail alongside Reno to get to Ray Trent Park. Gateways are important on Reno too. And I didn't even put a picture of a gateway because we all know what a nice community gateway looks like. But I think what y'all want to think about is, how do you keep the promise after someone passes that beautiful gateway? So some ideas we talked about yesterday were even an industrial business or a storage tank can participate in delivering on the promise of having a beautiful and welcoming community. So these examples are just, auto shops or big industrial uses. They can be incentivized to be part of sort of a colorful and welcoming community too. Last thing is neighborhoods along here. We think there's a lot of potential in the brands of the neighborhoods along Reno, like Midway Village, which used to be its own independent city that got absorbed into Del City. So that's cool. Maybe there's ways to highlight those neighborhoods' identity more. We talked about how industrial areas, once there's sort of investment there and they start to be attractive and drawing people for recreation, they can also attract quasi-industrial uses like breweries or maker spaces, things like that. There's also a bit of vacant land here, and one of Reno's challenges is once you cross Reno, nobody really lives north of there. So it's really hard to have a business when you don't have the population density to support your business. So we did talk a little bit about whether there was opportunity for new housing. A lot of shopping centers too that just need some love. And I just included this image to show that, an old rundown shopping center, pretty much no matter how rundown, can still have a new life and still be a home for businesses. This is an example from East Oklahoma City. Nice paint, nice signage, fresh windows, kind of touch up, and the right curation of interesting tenants that work together. And this is now a pretty successful place. I'm gonna go back here. Okay, so those were the big 3 pitches for Reno. So what do you guys think? Was this kind of generally in the right direction? Is there something missing from here, or does this sound right?
I mean, I think I like everything. Can you go to the map of Eagle Lake?
Yeah.
Step over here. No, you're good. My biggest concern about the entrance to Eagle Lake is I don't think, without getting rid, I believe that's Mako, and I don't know who's next to him on their east side, it's never going to, you're just going to have all these industrial businesses sitting right there all the time.
It's like an alley.
It looks like an alley, and I don't know what we can do without maybe getting in the way of the 2 businesses adjacent to it to make it where Eagle Lake is. So I've always thought if there's a way we can move it in order so we can put something nice and saying this is Eagle Lake, it might be a quick fix to do something a little bit more eye-catching before we do that. But I think within the next, if this is a 20-year plan, we do need to think about moving the entrance somewhere that we can make it noticeable to go to Eagle Lake. My always thought was going to be just east over here where all that trees are.
Mm-hmm.
You can make a little road all the way to Eagle Lake and just connect it to the already existing entrance and parking lot there. And you can make it where it's a nice little natural place. There's trees there. It looks like a park. Like there's one in Norman on your way to OU that has kind of a similar thing. It looks like a park versus you're driving down to, you have to drive down a gravel road. And it doesn't look like you're about to head into a nice lake. You go to Eagle Lake and it's fantastic and it's great fishing, but
I think that's a really good, so what I would suggest is we can explore kind of that positioning of the entrance, and we could also potentially we'll keep developing these ideas, so we could potentially kind of visualize or mock up exactly what it would look like from Reno, if it did stay in the same location or if it was in a new location. So that's something we can take into consideration.
Some low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
The perimeter of Eagle Lake, all around the border of the water there, is actually exactly 1.5 miles. Makes it a perfect walking or jogging trail. And it is fairly open all along, parallel to Reno, and then also the, what you call that, the eastern border, but parallel to the railroad tracks, and then whatever that company is along the east border. That's it. It's not mowed, so just by simply mowing it or maintaining it, that would add a 1.5 mile perimeter track for people.
I think JD already has some funding lined. Where is JD?
I'm right behind you, sir.
Don't you already have some funding to put a walking trail around Eagle Lake? Isn't that already in the works?
Yes, sir. Ms. Wilbanks and I have been working very, very hard. We have $500,000 dedicated to Eagle Lake through federal funding to put in the walking trail. We believe it's going to be asphalt as of right now. We'll see how much the concrete costs come back on. But putting that in and then putting in a parking area, as we discussed at the council meeting, we can't say parking lot. We can say parking area, and then building on from there. Also, I have a quick second to talk. It is not my idea. It was Miss Natalie's back here, but if we put a beach where the beak of the eagle is and called it Beak Beach, that just makes it.
Okay, Beak.
See, I told you we had fun. Yeah.
I know in some areas that they have these blue light systems where if you have an emergency, you just pick up the phone. I think it would be a good idea to have 1 or 2 or 3
Safety,
of those
yeah.
somewhere out there.
Safety.
Because
Yeah,
you are kind of off by yourself, and if you're a single mother with 2 or 3
Yep.
kids and feel unsafe, that would be something to take care of.
We also talked about lighting, and there are hours of operation posted at the park that we talked about, but that's a great addition to that.
Pull the map back up for just a second, if you would. Kind of what I've daydreamed about or visualized or would like to see. If either, right there where that 2 is, the landmark entrance, if either one of those buildings weren't there, there would be plenty of room to put a landmark entrance. See where the 2 is?
Number 2.
Look at the number 2 on Reno. Either one of those buildings, if they were removed, there would be plenty of room to make the entrance right there. And you can't scroll back to the left. Scott Street is just to the left. One of the things I'd kind of like to see is if we took Scott Street from where the exit is at I-40 and made it a boulevard to go from I-40 and just transfer straight into Eagle Lake. And I'm thinking a center grassy median, a real boulevard that would enhance the drive, preparing people to get into Eagle Lake. And that would really help, yeah, it would really help shine that area. We could rename Scott Street to Eagle Lake Drive and really enhance the whole project. But we would just have to remove one of those buildings. It would probably be as economical to take out one of those buildings as it would be to construct a road, because you're still going to have to buy the property if you come around from the east side there, like you're talking about.
Yeah.
And we could still develop that east side. That's just kind of a waste area that could be developed for, perhaps
Bonus area.
bonus area. Yes, okay. So anyway, that would leave that area to be developed, perhaps a hammock thing.
Mm-hmm.
My concern about the hammock park is homeless infiltration.
Yeah.
That would be a problem there. But
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would say, on that regard, one thing is when you have a place that attracts lots and lots of people, it does help with that. And point out this image is in the Wheeler district, which is just off Western Avenue in Oklahoma City.
They've been there, what, 5 to 6 years now?
the hammock area?
Yeah, right there by the river.
And they don't have any problems with it?
Not really, they're always full of families. I mean, there's homeless camps within a mile of there.
Interesting.
Maybe they don't like to be out in the open like that.
Other thoughts before we move
It's
on?
actually the most photographed place in Oklahoma City.
That's right.
Big OKC side.
Any
yeah.
further thoughts on Reno before we move on to the
Yeah.
second group?
Yeah, everybody probably knows I'm gonna throw this out there. But your trails, everything sounded great. That trail has got to go to sooner to tie in with Midwest City Trails that end at Sooner and Reno.
The rail trail?
Yeah, the rail trail.
Okay, great.
Do you envision a traffic study on Reno? Because you were sounding like you were gonna suggest closing it down. If you've ever been on that road during rush hour, you're either quick or you're dead.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, these are, everything that will be in the sort of small area plans will be sort of a concept recommendation. So essentially it would be like a list of items that maybe would require additional study if you wanted to pursue them. Yeah, exactly right.
I love the idea of developing Eagle Lake. I mean, that's a diamond in the rough. And that's probably some of the cleanest water in the metro. You know, when the water's up. I mean, it gets murky sometimes. But, yeah, I think that's something we should really focus attention on, is Eagle Lake.
Well, thank you guys for that extra input. Next one is 29th Street. We really looked at our group zeroed in on two locations. One was Epperly Drive location. We even got to stop by Pam's shop as part of our trip yesterday around town. And then the large vacant parcels that are west of the cemetery on Sunny Lane there. So those were the two areas. Our group spent some time developing a concept for making Epperly sort of the main street of Del City, and for the vacant land is kind of a empty slate, but also an important property for the future growth of Del City. On Rose Lane and Epperly, like I said, we talked about what would be the potential of this area reimagined as, well, it already is really Main Street for Del City, but what could we build on? There's area to improve where the fire department front lawn is. Maybe that could be a programmed square. The streetscape could be enhanced. The parking row in front doesn't get too much use, and we heard that's called Rose Lane, which is a very cool name in my
It's
opinion.
owned by the city, yes.
And so that's a kind of easy, accessible thing for you to make adjustments to. And we heard about all the things and events and festivals that have already been happening in that location. So a lot of it just builds on kind of what's already been happening. And maybe if this concept went forward, it could include even sort of a colorful intersection or something like that, textured intersection on 29th to kind of make a statement about Epperly. So our vision board for that, like I said, up by the fire station, that's a little bit of an open space. Maybe that's a place where a town movie night can be, or just a little bit more development where it can be welcoming for festivals and parties. The streetscape was mentioned, it might be important that it's easy to close the street down for festivals. Maybe there's bollards or something like that. I think also just making the street sidewalk a little bit wider, streetscape a little more friendly so that businesses can kind of add their little expression of character out in front of their shop, so that we can start to see blade signs that tell you what's happening, sort of pedestrian-oriented signs. I love these examples from Tishomingo and prior, the businesses just adding their personality out on the sidewalk. With Rose Lane, I think there's a lot of potential there for district branding with the Rose Lane and Old Town names. So that would also require further study by sort of professionals, but I do think there's a lot of potential there. Some examples, even this top example is just a coat of paint on pavement. They just put blue paint out on the pavement and started programming that space as extra seating and festival space. So maybe it's something you could even test out. Do people like it in a short term with just planter boxes? Some examples also came to mind for us today. This is an aerial view of Duncanville, Texas. It's a one-sided sort of strip mall of a main street, but on the left you can see what they looked like around 2010. Just a kind of big chunk of asphalt and parking in front of their shops. And on the right, you can see how they just kind of livened it up with little landscaping, and even that parking row kind of added some texture along that, so that the parking row, they use that for festivals, and it doesn't feel like a parking lot because it has those decorative brick squares whenever they do their festival. What that looks like on the ground is kind of like this. So kind of a similar configuration to how Rose Lane and 29th Street work. The other example is a community Nathalie's been working in, Marble Falls, Texas. Another situation with underutilized parking lots. And they used, if you can see that parking on the left, used it for kind of a very small, compact new town green. This is where they have their movie nights, and it also and they also have even a restroom, public restroom facility there. But this is how they took old parking lot and made it into something that a business wanted to be next to. Talked about how this could happen too. There's a lot of cute little businesses there. There's also some empty space and empty buildings. And I just pulled this example from 16th Street Plaza District in Oklahoma City. Sometimes you can do a lot with the existing buildings, just like the previous example. This was one big store that ended up getting chopped into smaller spaces so they could have a bigger variety of tenants. So one big discount store turned into 4 specialty shops that could occupy a smaller footprint. So that was kind of the Epperly new downtown. We talked a lot too about the importance of keeping programming there. And so that's going to take a whole other, that's not a physical thing, that's a volunteer thing, it's an operations thing, but people seem really excited about what can happen there. This is the vacant land, so orienting you, the Sunny Lane Cemetery there at the top, and then 29th Street running across the left of the image. Our group talked about how this property could play a role in expanding the menu of housing options. You know, Del City has lots of small-scale single-family housing, but this could potentially expand the options, maybe larger size units, mix of things. The group talked about there is a floodplain running through part of this, so somehow floodplain has to be considered and mitigated as part of a future development. But that maybe there could be an extension of the Hartsdale neighborhood up towards 29th Street with a couple different zones of different type of development. We wanted to pull some examples of what that really would look like in real life. And the other thing to note is this is such a large parcel. This would probably be something that would take place over a period of time. This would be a phased development that wouldn't all happen at once. So it would have to be broken down into chunks. But on the left is a neighborhood in Omaha called Prairie Queen that has a mix of maybe more townhouse style units toward the more major arterial, and then further back on the site, more single family type units. Same thing in Boise, Idaho. I can't give you mountains in Del City, but fortunate. And this is becoming really popular in our region too. So this is in Edmond. Again, sort of that spectrum of housing from the townhouse density down to the single family. This is a concept plan also in Edmond, a new neighborhood called Liberty Park coming. This one, some folks in the Half Associates office here in town were actually working on this project recently. So they showed us this image today, and you can even see how they've set this up with green space where their floodplain issues were. So the flooding issues actually become the benefit of the neighborhood. But it really has a similar configuration to what a lot of folks were saying yesterday, with maybe more townhouses up by the arterial and more larger lot homes towards the neighborhood. Okay, so thoughts on the big 2 pitches for 29th? Go back to the map. Let's see, this one here, or
No, the bigger one.
we actually started exploring the Rose Lane option and revitalizing that area. One of the major drawbacks was the power lines that run through the center of the parking lot. The cost of those was just, it was just absurd.
That was our concern yesterday too, when we were talking about it.
Yeah, we talked about including a couple ideas. One, if we could get the power lines down, that would be great, and we could do more flexibility. There's some things you can plant under power lines, like crepe myrtles and shrubs, things like that. So there could be options both ways, but if we could dream, it'd be great to be able to bury those.
It looks like the ideal solution would take all the utilities underground.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is every store and every occupied building that's on those power lines would have to reconfigure their meter base for underground utilities. That would put quite a burden on most of the shop owners over there. So, so that was why we backed away from that.
So we'll look at maybe especially focus on those ways we could avoid changing or disrupting the power line system.
Can you go back to the first one?
That's the Epperly.
Yeah. My only concern is safety. Right there off of Epperly when you go to the north end of 29th Street is the fire department needing access to get in and out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we do festivals or anything like that, that have to be heavily considered for them to have access to Old Town or any of the businesses across 29th Street. So wherever you decide to cut it off at, I mean, I think that would be a concern of safety. Because there's a fire that happens at McDonald's and they can't turn that in that street. Now they got to figure out where in the world. I mean, that takes it longer.
In the past, when we have had festivals on that street, the fire department has staged their equipment remotely out from that area, and that was their solution at that time.
It's very cool that they're working with the community like that. It's awesome. Yeah. Sound pretty much on a track we're willing to go along? Okay. We'll keep working on this. Okay, last one is 15th Street, especially around Sunny Lane over to Sooner. Two things really rose to the surface of this conversation. One is the fact that 15th Street is kind of at a heart of a lot of important civic spaces. We're sitting here in the community center. Even though it's operated privately, the baseball facility across the street brings a lot of people into the community. We can connect under I-40 into Ray Trent Park, and if our vision of connecting further down Reno to Eagle Lake were a reality, this would really be a central place, and also the library. So this kind of concept map kind of maps out really how important of a civic spine Ray Trent Park and this community center form. And the group really talked about how much opportunity that had. You look at this image, it almost makes you think of Central Park in Manhattan or Scissortail Park. It's really that grand of a scale of community connector. So it was a really interesting thing to think about. And the fact that a lot of visitors are coming into the baseball park, which we talked about some of the impacts that can have on the neighborhood too, whenever that facility is not owned and operated by the city, but maybe not all the citizens know that it's not operated by the city. So when people are parking in their driveways and things like that, they might blame the city for, So we talked about just those challenges, but also being able to let people know if they are here, all the other things they could maybe walk to from that area, safer ability to cross 15th Street around this area, and also just to kind of get around through this spine. So maybe this is a place where community wayfinding might have a pretty big impact, starting to train people how to think of Ray Trent Park as kind of a campus that they can explore Del City on. And much of Ray Trent Park is also in a floodplain, so that's something we want our team to look at, like what would be the options to kind of develop out some additional facilities in the park as well, but we do see some potential for a major investment in the park system.
Excuse me, if I might get back up to that map, please.
Yeah.
The little dotted line, I'm assuming, is 15th Street?
Yeah, 15th there.
And so I see that the last star on the lower right, is that not the floodplain?
It is.
It is? What was the
Magellan
discussion?
Pipeline runs through there.
Yeah, okay, what was the discussion about enhancing or doing what with that?
I believe there's some soccer fields down there. Is that right?
There's some, I'm sorry, what?
Soccer goals?
No, the soccer
That's
fields
No,
are off
that's-
of
That's on
Reno.
the north end.
It's on the north end.
Well, it's
Sorry,
it's
the
west,
bottom,
it's west of
sorry,
there.
the bottom star is where we have our retention pond for our TIF district, but it can be utilized in non, for example, to become soccer fields or to put in a walking trail to connect to the
The
Sooner Road district over the Magellan Pipeline.
There was actually a plan, and Magellan granted permission to put asphalt on top of their pipeline. Their pipeline is elevated, and it would make a great bike trail, a path to go to Sooner, because it, the bridge across the creek, and you're there.
Yeah.
But at one time, there was talk about putting a gazebo and maybe some picnic tables in that area, and it
Down
would
in
be
this-
a neighborhood. Old Town doesn't have a neighborhood park right now, and we talked about utilizing that area as a park for Old Town. However, we also have looked at the other side of Vicky, which is where the second star, as perhaps putting a park over in that area.
The star on the right, let's go back to that. Is that the field that's off?
This is Vicky.
Vicky, okay.
Yeah.
So that thing was built into a retention 10 years ago?
Well, it's a little longer than that, but yeah.
Yeah, it's been. It's a great place for athletic things. Is that, the city own that?
Yes.
It's a great place.
So we have an obligation as a city to keep that mowed and maintained, to keep the birds from, using that area.
Sure.
for your results.
Oh, right.
So we're
Yes.
supposed to be helping the Air Force out to keep the birds.
That is interesting.
So changing it
aspect.
over to something that has a reason to get mowed more often.
You're mowing anyway, right?
Birds usually lose to soccer balls.
I see a crudload of deer down there right now.
Wow.
14 or 15 last time I counted.
Wow.
There's two massive bugs down there. I mean,
Really
it's
cool.
just-
Yeah,
See 'em in the
We're seeing the deer
maybe-
population increase on Reno too. In fact, I asked the city manager to put some deer crossing signs
Yeah.
up to slow traffic on Reno. I don't know if the deer can read the signs, but
And know where to cross.
and know where to cross.
Well,
Yeah,
there's,
drives there about 5 in the morning. every morning.
there's about 2 or 3 of them. I know that's the Midwest City side, but they're on the east side, right across from all the TEDs and all that. They're in that little spot right there.
I counted about 6 one day when I was stopping at the
Go back
stoplight.
behind Kerr,
Mhm.
over where Ted's, is that field
That little creek there.
over there? You can
Could the,
look right up there at night and you can see.
I see some other
25
stars through Ray Trent Park, could you highlight what the discussion was about those?
Sure.
Because,
These were kind of like existing areas. So the baseball facility,
Yeah.
the community center, and
Okay.
some of the related improvements that are newer.
Okay.
Back in the back.
Outdoor fitness.
I think this is a dog park. Is that right?
It is, but I'd like to see the dog park move to the north end so that you can access it off of Reno. The long-term plan for the access road to I-40 is it's gonna be a one-way road, and our entrance to Ray Trent Park is gonna be compromised by the access road to I-40. Also, the center portion of the park floods. I've seen it. I mean, you could go whitewater rafting when it's bad. It really gets ripping through there. If we move the dog park to the north end over on Reno, then that area is accessible. It doesn't flood. You can get to it at any time, and it doesn't interfere with the flow of traffic on I-40. So,
I think, and then this final star is that's where the water tower is, kind of the high point of the whole park. Yeah.
Dog park down the bottom right-hand side, doesn't have to be huge, would be good as well.
I think where we're at right now is where our conversation ended was we see that a lot of this can be organized in a different way, and there's a lot of potential there. And that was kind of
We did talk about one time about putting in a massive splash park.
It-
Is that dead? Or is that?
It's not gone away. We actually, JD, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have funding for a pavilion in the outdoor meeting hall where that one star is by I-40. Is that correct?
Correct.
We got a grant that will allow us to build an outdoor meeting facility. And right where that star is, just north of I-40, is where we're projecting the outdoor meeting area because it doesn't flood there. That piece doesn't flood.
Since the access road is going to be one way off of our, we're working on some other way to get into Red Park.
We actually have negotiated with ODOT to build a bridge across Cherry Creek. The first intersection you've seen off of Sunny Lane, north of I-40, is VFW Drive or 9th Street. I've heard it called both 9th Street. And I would like to see that made into the main entrance for Ray Tran Park. And then we could do the monument entrance. And it would be off of Sunny Lane, which would be less dangerous than getting intermixed with I-40 traffic. ODOT has tentatively agreed to help us with a bridge across Cherry Creek. There would be land acquisition involved, but we could put the main entrance to the park off of there. The nice thing is that street would come in about where the dog park is right now. And if we had the pavilion to the south and then explore other possibilities to the north, it would basically empty at the bathrooms and the existing playground. So there's a real benefit to making that 9th Street the main entrance to the park.
And you know what'd be really cool is right there on the north end off of Reno. If you've ever been down, I know you mentioned it a couple times, like Scissortail Park or the Gathering Place in Tulsa, they have usually a restaurant, some type of, lodge that's there. People can go in, they can get food, they can relax, they can read a book, and when it's raining or anything like that, it's still somewhere people go to just be out in nature. And so that's something that I think maybe we can either put somewhere on the north end, whether that's on that other side of Reno or right there off of Reno, where people can come in, hang out. Maybe there's a brewery that might want to come in. People can just have a beer or something like that. Have a nice little spot where people can spend some time, where we're also still getting some utilization from it, where if there's bad weather, there's still people going.
The council has actually already approved a pedestrian bridge about where that top star is. And that pedestrian bridge will connect trails. We're hoping to eventually connect it to Eagle Lake. That would be the long term. But we've actually passed building a bridge, a second pedestrian bridge, across, that's Crutcho Creek right there, which would open that up to the neighborhood. That whole neighborhood would be able to access the park across that bridge. There's a third bridge that we're talking about, but we haven't budgeted or passed yet, and that's down by the playgrounds, which would connect the Orville Ray Towers to the playground area and would allow people at Orville Ray access to the park, easy access. So
I think, yeah, there's a lot of potential here. We're halfway through designing the park just in this conversation, so this is good. And Josh, I like that. I remember when you made the comment about some kind of food stand, it reminded me of, we talked a lot on where do the people at the baseball facility go eat yesterday, so that could be something really good for
At a ballpark.
Yeah.
Nothing better than a ballpark.
hot dog, snow cone, yeah.
Nachos,
So if I hear the conversation, I'm a part of the Dale Norn Neighborhood Watch, and that whole east side neighborhood is part of our area. And right now, the only entrance without having to go to Reno or to come down to 15th Street is to go in beside Dale Crest, what used to be middle school.
Yeah.
And access the park there, but you're saying there's no way to get across to that pavilion. It's gonna be up north, your bridge you're talking about, is that what you're saying?
No, there is a bridge right there.
Yeah, there's a bridge.
there's a
bridge
bridge
right there on the trail.
There is a bridge at Dale Crest.
Part of the walking trail now.
Right. There's one in place. We're talking about a second bridge further north that would open up that north end of the park And it would also open it to the neighborhood. They wouldn't have to walk all the way down. Right now, to get to Delcrest, they have to make that loop. They have to jog east and then south and then back west to get to that. It's quite a jog. And that would shorten all that.
Does Mid-Del still own Delcrest?
They do, and they're using it as an
For
administration,
special classes too.
yeah, an administration facility. And by the way, there's a tennis court, if you look at the map closely, right at the edge of Delcrest, there's a tennis court there. And the school system, Mid-Del schools, have offered to let the city take that over as part of our park, just to maintain it. That might be a possibility down the road. We've talked about a disc golf course playing back and forth both sides of Crutcho Creek. The pedestrian bridge on the north end would also facilitate that if we decide to move forward with disc golf course.
Wasn't there also a baseball field back there, I think?
There was, yeah, there's still some backstops in there. They've moved some of them. They pulled some of them out. They had rotted and rusted and were falling over. And so the city crew pulled them out and cleaned them up.
When it was still a school, the coach used to.
Oh, you're talking about at the school. There's
Here.
a huge baseball field behind the school. You're right.
There's two fields.
There's
Yeah.
flood area too.
Yeah, the only issue is the floodplain. So anything you'd have to install there, you're gonna have to live. Put it up.
Or issue snorkels.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
for today's purposes, we have what we need on this. So in the interest of time, I'll
So
move
one
on.
other part of
Yeah.
it is why don't we look at putting a trail down baseball fields at the end of this, so to Dale City High School.
Yeah.
So first connect that side.
Oh,
Make
yeah.
sure that's part of it. Yeah,
And then
Yeah,
that way the kids can also hopefully
that's great.
easier work back.
I was just thinking of
That's quite a bit of land west of Cherry Creek right there. That's a good sized space. That could be utilized for something.
I was just thinking maybe both of the school campuses here need to be kind of added to that highlighted area so that we think of them as part of this whole space as well. This has been great. Thank you so much. Real quickly on 15th Street side, we talked about a couple of the key areas like Sunny Lane and Sooner. I don't think this is quite here yet, but just thinking about how this could maybe incrementally change over time. Suggestions for property owners, maybe it's tied to the comprehensive plan signage code updates, or some communities look at through road improvements trying to consolidate driveways in order to make these shopping centers work a little bit better from a flow perspective, or enable them to develop their out parcels, like the donut shop in the corner of this large surface lot. So we see some opportunities to maybe change how these centers evolve over time.
You're aware there's a Dale City icon right there, the Del Taco.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, Big Del Taco. That's an icon in this
It was
community.
there when I was in high school.
You can't do anything to change Big Del Taco. You run out of town.
We were just there photographing the sign when the sunset was just perfect earlier, about an hour and a half ago. The other key areas that we talked about in the group a lot was east of I-40. These three parcels that are kind of highlighted here, kind of expected, anticipated to change and develop soon. There's already the change to the Golden Corral, and we don't have the answers today on this, but we do think that if the north side of that street's going to change, it's an opportunity to look at how that area functions. Traffic around Walmart, being able to turn left out of Walmart to go back towards Del City. But we feel like if this transitions, just kind of right now, our thinking is how can we make sure it doesn't mess up things, and how can we make sure that it maybe helps set that area up for better performance.
Get rid of that gas station.
That's here.
That's the sushi place, man.
Yeah, that's the
Keep
best.
the sushi place.
That's the best sushi in
But-
Oklahoma City.
It is very good.
Good people come in from Midwest City to get sushi there.
So that's kind of where we're at with the three focus areas. We'll be continuing to develop these for the final plan, kind of outline sort of action steps that could be taken. It'll probably be some things the city can lead on, and some things that maybe property owners have to be encouraged, incentivized to step up on their end of the bargain, business operators, how they might be able to play a role. And what we hope to do with each of these is to identify how these things can also take time. So don't, get discouraged by the big vision, and don't get discouraged by where you're at now. Just with the Eagle Lake example, already underway, the parking and trail improvements, short-term wins, a food truck zone, a couple of hammocks to form a hammock park. That's a short, quick win that can be done. Whereas, this big move is Eagle Lake as a destination, and we're starting to see property owners respond to the fact that people are going there and traveling there. So we kind of see that we could, build out this vision of like what could happen now and what could that end up becoming in the future. And I think the important thing we kept coming back to yesterday too is sometimes the city has to move first. You can't always expect the business owners or the property owners to be the first ones to move. Example that came up yesterday was the Plaza District. It came up in several of the meetings, but that streetscape was approved and constructed almost 25 years ago. And that's, where the neighborhood is today. So you're working on a 20-year plan right now. So we want to make sure these focus areas recognize there's things you can do today, and they'll have an impact right away that you can enjoy, but there's also these long-term impacts. Exactly. Okay, that's all I have, and I'll turn it over to Nathalie here.
So, with these thoughts, because it's a 20-year plan, so lots of money is available at ACOG. You'll figure out which projects to use. I've been on the council for 8 years now, and we would have got started back then on putting in the ACOG projects when they had it built.
Yep.
So, part of, I hope that part of your things is going to come up with a whole list.
A laundry list,
Of the things that we should submit for federal grants.
Yep, I think that's, and most of the things, like I said, this will be a concept level. So most of them, we spent some time talking about the park, but keep in mind this is the very first step zero of that, dreaming about the park or dreaming about Eagle Lake, and there'd be more process that need to happen. But this could at least get you towards knowing which grant to apply for first. You're exactly right.
The next part of the question I got for you is one of the goals for this is to come up with a zoning. So we don't have the Sooner Road question that goes through Mr. Kluge's area. It says, how do we come up with discussions about where we're going to actually put in the commercial zone and which houses are we going to be looking at changing from residential to commercial?
I'll have Nathalie help with that.
This is
it's a good
actually
segue.
a pretty good segue. So this mapping exercise that I'm going to have you guys partake in now is something that's going to help inform the future land use plan, which is a component of the comprehensive plan. The part of the comprehensive plan, we are doing a code assessment. So we'll look at your codes and your zoning, and we'll sort of assess. We'll make some recommendations on red lines, kind of how they can be approved. All of that will have to be taken to lawyers, as we're not lawyers, and you'll have to go through the legalese and draft the zoning, change the ordinances, everything. But the future land use plan should be the first step in sort of your zone. They should complement each other. So today we're going to sort of look at your city and see what are some of the changes in the land use that you would like to see that will then set you up to start thinking about zoning, which is the next step after the comprehensive plan. Does that kind of answer your question? So if everybody wants to go ahead and flip over your maps, I realize it's going to be kind of a moment. We figured this was easier than kind of lay them all out in the middle of this process. And then I'll explain the rules. So we're going to divide you guys into teams. So we're not teams, groups. Group 1, feel free to move your chairs if you want to, or stand up if you want to on the map. Another group. And then you guys are kind of naturally divided into 3 and 2. And maybe if we want to turn the lights on over here, would that help? I think
Yeah,
maybe
just that
Shane
top
knows
one.
how to do it. So this is a mapping exercise that we like to do when we're thinking about future land use. So as you see, you have a pretty basic map of Del City. It's got focus areas identified, it's got the floodplain, parks, things like that. You have 4 colors of markers. What I'd like you to do is take your red marker. I'm going to give you all about 20 minutes to work as groups. Take your red marker and circle areas that you think can be evolved or transformed. Maybe this is where the land use doesn't apply anymore. Maybe something, what do you see? This is redeveloping into something. The green marker, circle or highlight, and these can be ugly bubbles, anything. I'm not looking for artists here. We're looking for engagement. Circle areas that you think should be preserved or strengthened, maybe existing neighborhoods, parks, hearts of the community, shopping centers that are important, those sorts of things. Blue markers, I'd like you to think about transportation issues. Think about roads that are maybe too wide for the traffic that they're serving right now, or the opposite, roads that are too small or clogged constantly, areas that need pedestrian improvements, anywhere you think trails would go. And then I also want you to think about gateways to the city. If you could only pick 2 gateways to the city, these are the important avenues where people come in, where would you put the 2 big gateways in Del City? And then also, a concept that came up yesterday is a thank you for visiting sign. Sort of, you are now leaving Del City, sort of delineate your boundaries. If you could put 2 thanks for visiting, come back and see us soon signs, where would you put those? Black markers? Anything else that you think of that you want to talk about? The one thing I ask is please take notes on the map. These are going to go back to me and my colleagues in Austin, and we're going to translate these into recommendations in future land use maps. So annotate all of your reasons, because I won't remember anything you say.
Ready, set, go.
And I'm going to give you guys about 20 or 30 minutes, and then each of you are going to nominate one person, and you're going to kind of present your map to the rest of the group.
You're our spokesman.
And I'll be floating around to help you to answer questions. Sheila's supposed to.
I think it's really critical.
Alright, red marker.
Transformation.
Area which
Yes.
is the ball.
Something about Scott Street.
Yeah. So, any areas that evolve
Yeah.
areas to be revitalized, places where land use no longer
Take it all out.
So my thought is,
It's fine. Like, down there.
Yeah, so what I'm wondering is how wide.
Yeah, this is where the soccer fields are.
We just got the new. I like the idea of Eagle Lake Drive. Oh, down there. That's one of them.
And so, your funeral home is
Rename on the roads. Yeah, we always have.
The weekends are kind of slow a little bit.
Scott Street's famous.
Yeah.
Not the good, not the right reasons.
It does generate the right image, doesn't it?
Okay, that's a good idea. I'm not.
Entryways to the city.
There's so many
Right now.
places, or even off the highway.
Definitely.
Places where there's a lot of.
Right, and this is part of the situation that I see right now is there's a certain criteria of folks who are wanting that to become Reno.
Is it something that the area should be revitalized?
But it never has been.
So
Yeah, I wish it really didn't build a whole.
And I fear if we make Reno,
Yeah.
I mean, look,
Don't get me wrong, appreciate them for being here, but this is never gonna look right. I know there's something
It would take such an investment.
How much of this back to all this out?
to make it.
This is sign language, this is a pawn shop, and then there's the store here somewhere. Yeah, and then there's a housing bar, and it's past that.
Because we have a main draw. We seem to be drawing the wrong crowds.
Yeah, most of that is.
Right through here. And it appears to me that anytime
That's where
we try
they're.
to do development, everybody as possibly can.
Yeah.
To not do it.
But the light green is that
Where we walk.
it's like kind of a big flood area or zone.
All the businesses that impact water.
I think Michael-
We got, you cannot put anything in there.
Yeah, the light brings us
I think our busiest.
We were right next to
Like a 100-year flood or 50-year flood or something. I know a flood is gonna have certain times there on.
Let the city go through it.
We gotta get some income. There's no ground to be able to pay that.
We haven't had.
About how much it's changed.
Yeah, over there by the.
And so.
I think
Yes.
actually, I like.
Well,
It's changed in the last 3 years. We got-
Well, I saw what.
Entrance is tied to the goal.
No, back it up. All the way up to
So you mentioned Scotch Tape, but I say
Yeah, we need. That could be part of the.
Finance-wise. This one is all.
In the other end.
They are down here.
Because, it's gonna be interesting stuff. Oh, there's gonna be restaurants. Yeah, the Troll, there's the one down here off Loves.
Broadway.
You're gonna have a lot of those.
Years ago, all those,
This area is.
buildings and all that stuff there, and they redid the parking where you could get in there a lot easier to park.
Not going
And now
to,
you go down there, it's on the weekends, like,
I believe.
yeah.
It's hard to
Now
hear.
they're like every third Saturday, like, yeah. They built like a market. Have you seen it lately? Yeah, now they're, now they have a lot of housing going up over on and Broadway there. So you know that.
A lot of those, the city told us that rezone that area, these are all a lot non-Islamic.
Yeah.
If the city, if this is industrial, don't quote me,
Right.
actually, not thinking.
How awesome was that?
But if secret
I
rezone
would say
is
that
something else.
Yeah.
Industrially,
You've got
continue,
the
but when
start.
they change ownership.
Understand this.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
private property.
And, you know, the problem with doing.
They can't just come in here and existing business.
Gonna get
There's
this
some-
lot wider.
that is more
Yeah,
difficult.
our apartments there. We have the new fire department. I think this building here on the corner, I think is empty.
Because that's called.
Yeah, this was an old theater over there. And you have all this shopping up here that could just.
I'm just looking
Yeah.
at it on
But that means
So.
that.
How about- how about-
Yeah, that would be.
So yes, it's all already.
It's all already.
I would say.
It's like, I would say, and don't quote me on this, because I don't have my maps all over my face. Down here, there's like 5 parcels that are industrial, and that's it. The rest of it's very zone.
One of those buildings, if we took out the
Industrial park
we
behind.
could penetrate
Traffic flow, where we want our 2 main entries here.
Well, we know it's for, well, that's right.
Yeah.
One and 30.
And that's what the one of my.
I'm gonna butt in real fast. I know exactly where we should put an exit.
facility.
Shipping right there off of Sunny Lane
Yeah, so the
on
question is-
44th Street. So every time people leave, when they see the crime that happens south of 44th
Yeah.
Street, they know
I think it
it's
is
not in Bell City. Because every time I get asked, everybody assumes those apartment complexes on 44th Street, it's right there. This is worse than this is
Where's
worse
the
than-
apartment?
This is gonna.
Oh my God.
And over here, you know, you have some my biggest area for the south.
Neighborhood by
It's a little bit less to the general quality.
So we can transform that.
Traffic counts, you really can't put in here because you've
No,
got
if
the main fueling to go for the state.
And
The
this
whole
one
thing
comes
comes
out
out
saying,
gas trucks, they destroy our streets. We got nothing for it. So when your traffic counts.
Yeah, we were talking about.
All right, who's the white guy?
That's
why we put the important.
Yeah, today there's about 9 to
All right, who's the one?
Yeah,
they're circles. They got here.
I looked at.
Yeah, no, they were usually going to
Ever find a way to decide
This was more like.
So there's a school. There's no sign.
That's pretty low volume. That's an area right there. Because there's nothing over here.
You call that school.
There's a lot of things this way. Number one,
Oh, that's
Number two, and say, well, we have a restaurant here. We're guaranteeing that this is not going to be wrapped up forever because.
So you gotta use your red marker.
Yeah, get it on there.
Otherwise it's not going
I
to.
know this is very clear.
Okay, well.
We haven't been involved for years.
Yeah, it was like they haven't been involved for years, we haven't done this for years.
Well, no, you can't have a quarter.
You blame us for this.
You haven't.
Yeah, I've actually walked that trail in that bridge. That bridge is nice and I was appreciated. There's a bridge
Yeah.
on the other side. But the new building and stuff, I don't understand why they don't put the trail on the other side because we do have some trail this side of the
Maybe that's what.
well, but so where do they go with
No, that's what I'm saying.
They're not gonna have a lot of room there. Because it wouldn't take much for them to finish out the trail from Eagle Lake here and connect that. That's only a mile from Eastern or a mile or something where you
Right.
Because my thought was, This is actually
But our like supposed to. Yeah, but that trail here, that trail that comes up here, and I've gone a little ways, I haven't gone completely, but so this is. Right.
But you already see where it's headed.
Yeah.
That is the zone.
So you only have a mile of trail.
I would really like to see
Yeah. So if they finish that out, people at the casino and people at
I wonder if
come over to the park. Oh, they're gonna finish this side of the trail?
when I was off.
Are y'all marking while y'all are talking? We're not getting any. So.
It's because
It makes an instant thing, like hands, like we need to mark that.
This is the problem. Okay. So I talked to people, there's literally
Well, you know what I really like is the racetrack park. I don't know if it's still there, the rocket slide.
I'm gonna give you guys another like 10 minutes, just a heads up.
Yeah. So it has a rocket. The only other place that has one
I think that was
But
Thank you.
I'd like to see it. You're gonna change your
house all about.
There are.
I agree with you.
Yeah, they're done. Yeah, they're talking right now. So
Problem is,
about a new entrance right here.
the trail follows.
Mark, can you believe this is already been out?
Yeah, I think we'll all present it.
That's what I'm saying. Right here. Turn that around, it's always facing this way, you're leaving Nelson, and the road up and down, you look this way, unless there's no sign that say Nelson, because that's exactly what they do. They say, no, listen, we don't start gas station, and that's where we build. They welcome to Del City, like they build.
And where's the
facing
sign?
this
So like when we were talking yesterday, we were talking about moving marking from High Street. Going on to City Lane. We want to road City Lane. Thank you for looking at our people visiting Delphine. No, just past that, that's not Delphine.
And then I'll know.
Wait, no.
Right.
It's so simple.
Right. Right. So here,
Also,
here,
here, right? And then one, and then I think we do need to do one here. We need to get rid of that gas station. Yeah.
I'm so excited.
I mentioned that yesterday. So you're right here on one, you're stuck right here, and I put in restaurants right here. I can't go around more than 3 hours a week. Where am I gonna go? Right? 5 minutes. Yep. And guess what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna turn right. I go right here in the middle of the
I don't know how.
All of the neighborhoods here have.
Right along.
A lot of these houses are so.
It's a hard side won't go around.
The whole street has not been.
I don't. I think it's
Are there any other areas?
Should be able to.
Where,
So maybe it's a spread.
maybe 29 was right.
That's more. Are you a Texas fan?
No, we have a sign, no, we have a sign. I think so, we have a sign on. And then we have a sign right here, on the exit, right there. Is there one there already?
Welcome to Del City. I guess you could do one side is welcome and one side is.
There's no welcome to anybody coming. That's exit.
I know, I thought it was very telling.
This neighborhood's great.
Well, that's what I So are we gonna
If you
do
go down,
this?
make sure you're on.
Yeah.
Like, trail?
That's what it's
But it would have to be on the north side, or it's really, I don't know. Right. Right, one side or the other. Yes.
I want that to stay the same.
We actually.
We want the same.
So they literally come in the house.
The whole area there.
And they'll do this.
Well, I don't wanna mark it wrong, but we don't.
This is worth $500, I'll take that. This is worth $499, I'll take that.
They'll come in the house with a
Revitalize places for land use.
They get caught.
Area, so we want this area to be revitalized, not to stay the same. To be more of a downtown.
They're old.
You can't get rid of them.
No, no.
Not
So.
Can't be mean to that name. Right?
Attractive.
Yeah.
Yep.
One business to another, not drive up in front of your donut shop, back to the car, drive back away.
Hang out on a Saturday morning is, you know, like Edmond, they built a market right next to it. I don't know where we can market.
Right? You gotta do a little of that.
Yeah, cause the shops are already there, aren't some of them empty?
Yes. But stuff that doesn't really work very
Well, I know, everybody says that about it.
Areas where
Yeah. Yeah.
well.
That's what happened. That would be, that raises it. Where'd they go? Oh.
I think we changed it, I don't want to change it first.
Mexican food very
Right across the street. Yes, maybe. And there's a light right there. It used to be,
This needs to be like,
I was gonna put this, I was gonna say this.
I would say it needs to be love.
that's what I thought.
This right here is this one goes into
Yeah, this way. She needs some I-40 access road.
I would also put this.
Probably red.
And it does work. So a dog park is it's gonna be great.
Well, there's the building there where the pawn shop was.
Yes, I would.
Yeah.
And possibly go ahead and make this real hard now.
They need to come down.
No, improve that. So I mean, that's
Not industrial. What'd you say?
So,
you
yeah, you know, I've never walked down there.
That's why we don't get a lot of. Yeah. Yeah, and so Edmund there. Yeah, the angle. Yeah.
Here. We need to probably put in our drainage.
It's actually right here. That is exactly. The idea here was to put the city, but
Yeah.
oh, that's church. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And Del Taco.
all of the complex.
I mean, they keep it up. They keep it up. Pretty good.
Is this revitalized, this old yellow?
What they were talking about with dog.
Because you're trying to add something, right? Yeah, enhancing blue. Green is preserved.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna cut y'all off. I'm gonna take away the markers. If everyone could go ahead and kind of sit back down. Well, I guess you don't have to.
Do it.
Go ahead and present.
Yeah. Thank you, Michelle.
Greg, what's your back? Get over here.
It's hard. Go ahead and decide amongst yourselves who's gonna present their plan. Don't worry about the details.
Too much.
You don't need to, but we're gonna have you nominate the presenter and then kind of run us through their plan.
There's so many things you can do. How are you gonna pay for it?
Coming back.
Even Old Town.
We're gonna present our plans to each other and then you can go home.
Well, yeah.
Everybody's
I grew up like right here, so I was like 3 blocks.
All right. Do you guys want to go in clockwise or counterclockwise order?
Whatever works.
Start over
Do you wanna
here.
go first?
Yeah, we'll go first.
All right.
All right.
Josh, knock it out.
Knock it out of the park here.
So if you want, I can kind of hold it up and you can.
Yeah, that works. Alrighty, so. I'll wait for Shandy.
Just so I can also see the map.
Make a great easel as well.
So you know who's talking? I'm Josh Schultz. I'm a planning commissioner and also the executive director at the Del City Chamber. So this is kind of what we were thinking here. Several enhancements. We like the idea. Let's put a boulevard through here, Scott Street. It's kind of already got a bad connotation to it. When you think of Scott Street, you think I should probably be strapped when I go through there. Change that up. Make it Eagle Lake Drive. Make that a nice entrance to Eagle Lake. You can kind of connect that to the already existing area there that's already built in right there off of Reno. You move down here. What I would like to see is on that north end, right across it from AYSO, let's put a lodge there. Let's put some sort of restaurants. You can develop that, and you can also change that into another, maybe even a trail. As you're connecting Ray Trent Park, you can put a trail all the way to Eagle Lake, kind of go down Reno maybe. Look into doing that there. Park access, right in here. I know we kind of discussed that a little bit, trying to make sure there's an open area there on 9th Street. Put in maybe another fire station or police station right in here where that's an old apartment complex, isn't it? Yeah. So if anything ever happens or they were willing to sell, that might be good to have on that north end of I-40 here, and to kind of take away some of the stress from right here at the community center. One thing I do want to point out is I would like a very large exit sign right here.
Us too. We've got that as well.
I don't want a welcome sign. I want, because what they do is we want, because what they do is they position themselves right here. They film at that welcome sign there. It says welcome to Del City, and they tell about that crime that happened like 2 blocks south in Oklahoma City, and everybody thinks it happened here. Large exit sign, that did not happen in Del City. and we'll be open to putting one here and here if y'all are all interested. So also right here through 29th Street, right here, all that open land area, obviously that'd be great for developing restaurants, bars, places that people can go, because I think this could be a really good entrance point into Del City. We all were agreeing on that. Coming through here, there's a lot less traffic, but if there's nothing there to go to. I mean, you got Lassiter's right here, but other than that, there's nothing to come visit. And you're going to drive all the way through this empty space to get all the way over here into 29th Street where we actually have our main district. And here, I'm almost done, I promise.
My arms are tired.
You're good. Right through here, we're thinking let's have open seating areas where some of these restaurants can put open seating at. Let's put sidewalks.
Are you talking about Rose Lane?
Rose Lane. Just kind of all up and down this 29th Street area. Let's have sidewalks. Let's make it kind of an open park area where people can come, especially if we're going to do festivals and things like that. I'm thinking downtown Edmond, wide open. People would come out, sit outside, eat.
Wider sidewalks.
What was that?
Wider sidewalks.
Wider sidewalks. And then redevelop this. It is a flooding area, but it's a soccer field. We play soccer when it's muddy. It's the best soccer you'll ever play in your life. You can also put another dog park here. That's also another idea. It's a floodplain. You know.
Dog swim.
I know Senator Childress mentioned, hey, when it rains and it floods, we probably needed to wash it anyways. It's not the worst thing in the world. And then 2 entrances here, coming in from Midwest City on that side, and coming in from Tinker Air Force Base right there, as they exit that Air Depot gate, saying, hey, welcome to Del City. I think those are 2 very good spots that we can put it. A nice facade of welcome to Del City. And I think that is all the points. Did I miss anything, guys? I hit it all? I think I hit it all.
I like it.
Oh, and the rezoning of all this. Obviously, we don't want to kick anybody out of their houses, but as people move or they sell, make that where the city can take that on and redevelop that whole
You mean by
area.
all this, Josh?
What was that?
You mean the Sooner area?
Yeah, right there off of Sooner, between Reno and 15th.
Yeah.
And north.
I know some of that has, Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, I know some of that has been rezoned commercial, or has it?
Some of it has.
So-
Across the top of Reno up there?
No, between the 15th and Reno, that's on Sooner.
From 15th to 12th. 15th
Yes.
to 12th.
That's commercial.
So that's already been rezoned.
Yeah, it's office commercial.
That's perfect, see? I was thinking ahead.
There you go.
Thank you, Josh.
Well done. You're welcome.
Thank you, group
I
one.
like it, yeah.
That's good.
Josh,
Wait,
do me
and
a
I
favor.
We.
And I really like your guys'
Annotate
thing
some of
about
those
exit
reasons
signs,
mentioned
because
here and right
nobody really knows
Oh,
where
I
the
got it
city
right there.
limits are.
I got a little circle there, yeah, I
So-
got that here.
So I think we should work on
All right, group number two. Who's gonna present y'all And I should mention, Josh, you did a great job, but let's try to keep these brief. In the interest of interest, it is already 7:53.
If he mentions anything about rezoning Pearl Way,
I
it's
heard
just
it's
a
the greatest
bogus-
idea, right?
No, that's a bogus opinion.
You just really need a big industrial, Okay, so the big black line is, go ahead and get that creek concreted in. Yeah,
Drainage
prob-
improvements?
Drainage improvements, and we also need to do some drainage improvements over on Ritzer Creek. And, finish that part off. Let's see, so we looked at Golden Corral. Golden Corral comes, this is on Sooner Road. So this red line is just trying to set up the commercial district, and basically giving the depth of the lots 300 to 400 feet. So trying to change that zoning all to commercial. All right, and the black lines, just the ideas for the trails, sidewalks, walkways going over to Del City and back all the way down to Draper Lake down south.
I like the trail going to the high school. That's something that we haven't really talked about before. Incorporating the high school trail and then tying in going soon.
And what's nice about that is it's a second nice entrance into this neighborhood, which is slow traffic. So vice Mickey or any place else. All right, so then how about this part also, just making sure that Reno's all zone commercial all the way across. We're looking at our entrances being also on 29th. And with that entrance, one thought is we're hoping, there's a possibility, and we're trying to discuss the pros and cons of it. Did I say the thing? Of the airplane, basically all the airplanes that's over at the entrance of Air Depot going into Tinker, they're going to have to find a new home.
Oh.
And so one thought is why not move it into the county land of that corner, which, and make a park out of it. And then,
They've already got a giant dirt pedestal.
that might put that airplane up too high.
Eagle Mountain.
Yeah.
All right, you did bring back some of those things.
And so that's one of the thoughts. So if we did that, that could also work into a really nice entrance to the Del City.
So when you say airplane park, you don't mean like park the airplanes there?
Yes, we do.
We do.
Yes.
And then build a park around it?
It's a
Oh,
museum.
No, not those guys. Not those. No, I said the airplanes at Air Depot. So we go into the base on Air Depot. We make a left.
The ones that sit right out in front of
The big one.
Right next to the I-4.
The old plane.
The real ones. So we're talking there's the old presidential plane.
Eisenhower's.
And I think there's a few.
There's some
Cool.
They're-
Do you have
they're
any
just
other-
shells.
And then of course just doing stuff that we've already been talking about. So, and then go ahead and rezone the R4 apartments over there into a commercial spot to tie in with the rest of the commercial around here. And anything else I should point out? Oh, then you got your 24th Street that we're considering.
Yeah, middle school, extending 24th Street to soon.
Great.
Well done.
I think those are all great ideas.
Should we play these so that we can?
Yeah, let's start with that. Thank you so much. Group number 3.
Oh, you're gonna make me.
All right, let's see, let's just cover things that others didn't talk about. We talked about making everything over here industrial more attractive to surround Eagle Lake.
This is pretty not attractive.
Yeah, pretty. Pretty. Jackie had mentioned, so we've been talking about housing over here. She mentioned the fact that we really only have one area for senior housing in Del City, and this might be a good area for that, right next to the graveyard.
He did bring that up there.
We're just dying to get there anyway. It's a short ride.
We talked about the same entrances everyone else did. So Jackie and I, being Ward 3 and 4, we're very concerned about the Vicky area and what that might look like right now with them eliminating the left-hand turn. So there's either something needs to happen here, not sure what that is. We concentrated on 15th and Sunny Lane intersection, all 4 corners really needing some love and some change. You had mentioned the tennis courts of Delcrest Middle School. That's a giant field that they probably don't want to maintain, so maybe we talk to them about adding that into the park. Pickleball. No one's mentioned pickleball, but that's pretty,
surprising.
That's pretty huge, right?
Yeah, I have a lot of tennis courts in those cities.
I think that's pretty much covers everything that everyone's mentioned.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Looks well annotated. I think I understand. And last but not least.
Did you draw the short straw?
Absolutely no difference.
Besides, different arms.
Yeah, and I'm gonna skip over, so much of this, we all came up with the same thing, so I'll just really very, very briefly.
Good, there's group
go.
consensus.
Yes, so I've already mentioned trails, that's already been mentioned by a couple of people. We've already talked about revitalizing, especially that 2 blocks just north of Southeast 15th there, area on 29th, making this more walkable, more friendly to stay. Instead of drive in, get your donuts and leave or whatever, make it attractive. We also have exit signs on Sunny Lane and 44th, and we also want to do something to rezone or get rid of the apartments. Oh, I think the only new thing that nobody else really mentioned is need some sidewalk improvements around Epperly Heights Elementary School there, and make that area a bit more walkable, safe, kid-friendly too. I think that's really the only thing that wasn't mentioned by another group. Anything else?
Nice
All right,
job,
Is there
guys.
a black line coming out of Ray Trent and going across, is that a trail?
Trails, yeah,
Okay, all right.
yeah, trails. Trails
Yeah.
going through and connecting to Sooner.
Yeah. All great. Thank you so much. So a lot of the same themes. A lot of people already very interested in the focus areas, which is great. It means we selected the correct 3 focus areas for Del City. Yeah, I think there's a lot of information here. I like the direction where a lot of people went. I think it's really interesting that I gave you 2 exit signs and everybody took one and put it in the exact same spot. A lot of the entrance signs also came up on kind of the what is this, west side, Sooner Road. Yeah, so a lot of consensus there. I hope everybody had fun with this exercise. It's not every day that you get to do a comprehensive plan and look at your whole entire city and dream about what you want it to be. I think that concludes everything that we wanted to go through with everybody, unless anyone has any final remarks they want to bring up or last discussion points. Sort of next steps for us. So as I mentioned, this kind of concludes the first third of the plan. We're exiting sponge mode. We've gotten all of the information from the community. We're now going to go into our cave and work on drafting this plan and creating recommendations and giving you an actionable timeline with an implementation table and a list of here are the short-term steps, here are the medium-term steps, and here are the long-term steps on how to achieve this vision that everybody has put forth that is still in a amalgamation space that will condense into something digestible. We have another joint meeting with you guys later in the process where we'll do sort of preliminary recommendations. We'll present kind of a draft of the plan and go through it. But as far as when that'll happen, I don't have an exact timeline yet. We'll need to go into our cave and figure that out. But you'll see us in a couple of months.
Woo! Okay. Any further discussion before we close the public discussion period? Any?
Just one clarification. So this kind of concludes the citizens' input, the focus, or the sponge process or whatever?
Yeah, this concludes the sort of gathering data, asking how would you like your city to look like slate space. When we come back for further engagement, it'll be presenting something and getting reaction. It'll be, here's a draft, what do you think? Are we in the right, is this the right direction? Should we tweak? Kind of thing. So we've set the overall direction. Further from here will just be refinement.
Okay, very good. Right. Any more questions? Anything?
Let's get the exit sign up next week, everybody's.
And we all agree.
You help us on catching all the criminals that are running through town.
I would entertain a motion to close the public discussion portion.
I make a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Take the vote. Josh Schultz.
Aye.
Wendell Kluge.
Aye.
Councilman Gandy.
Aye.
Councilman Mooney.
Aye.
Councilman Finch.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Commissioner Turk.
Aye.
Commissioner Childers.
Aye.
Commissioner Parker.
Aye.
Commissioner Hutchinson.
Aye.
Commissioner Streetman.
Aye.
Commissioner Caruso.
Aye.
Mayor votes aye. The public discussion is now closed. Any further business? I will entertain.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion? Take the vote. Councilman Gandy.
Aye.
Councilman Mooney.
Aye.
Councilman Finch.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Commissioner Kluge.
Aye.
Commissioner Turk.
Aye.
Commissioner Childers. Did you say aye?
Sure.
Thank you. Commissioner Schultz.
Aye.
Commissioner Parker.
Aye.
Commissioner Hutchinson.
Aye.
Commissioner Streetman.
Aye.
Commissioner Caruso.
Aye.
Mayor votes aye. We are now adjourned.
Everybody, you take water and snacks on your way out the door.